At Homework House, we work with a variety of ages. The kids we're working with are going through a fascinating journey of development, and the more we understand about that development, the better companions we can be on the journey. Experts break development down into 4 types. Physical development, in which a child develops body strength and coordination skills. Cognitive development, in which a child is working on thinking and problem solving. Language development, in which a child learns to both communicate their own ideas and feelings, as well as understand what others are communicating to them. And socio-emotional development, in which a child develops the necessary skills for relationships. It's important to realize that every child develops at their own pace. Developmental milestones are a guideline, not a diagnosis. I was a late walker because I was busy talking nonstop, while other kids I know were climbing like lemurs before you could understand a single word they said. The point of this video is not to learn to identify when something is, quote, wrong with a child's development, but to help you calibrate your expectations for the age group you're tutoring. It's helpful to be aware not only of the abilities the children you work with are likely to have, and the ones that they're likely to be still learning and working on, but also of what's likely to be going on inside for those children. Experts divide child development into 5 stages, 3 of which happen in the first 5 years of a child's life because kids are developing so rapidly at that time. The kids at Homework House almost all fall into the second to last stage, which is the grade school stage, ages 5 to 12 years. A few of our kids are on the cusp of the final stage, which is adolescence, but the vast majority are in this 5 to 12-year-old range. During this stage, kids are growing in confidence, learning to problem solve, and forming friendships. Their development at this age is largely focused on developing relationship skills, personal interests, and reading skills. The youngest kids we have in our program are in 1st grade, where kids are usually 6 to 7 years old. Here's what you can expect from a child of 6. Physically, they have the fine motor skills to pick up and handle tiny objects. Those fine motor skills also allow them to copy and/or draw basic shapes, including triangles and diamonds, to cut out simple shapes and paste them appropriately, and to color neatly within the lines. Their pictures will include some detail by this stage. Pictures of people will include a head, trunk, arms, legs, and a face, while other simple pictures such as houses will include details like a door, roof, windows, and so on. They should, at this age, be holding a pencil correctly rather than in a fist, and have pretty good control with crayons, pencils, paintbrushes, and so on. If you're wondering what correctly means for a pencil grip, here's how it should look. The index finger and thumb should pinch it, while the middle finger provides a place for it to rest. This gives a child maximum control. If you see a kid struggling with their pencil grip, you can gently help them modify it so that an inefficient or ultimately painful pencil grip doesn't get ingrained. By the way, correct pencil grip is the same for righties and lefties, and kids have usually established by this time whether they are right or left-handed. Kids at this age are learning to integrate their cognitive, language, and motor skills as they start to write, but there's still a lot of development going on there. So even though they've probably been able to count to 10 for a year or more, they're likely only writing the numbers 1 through 5. They'll have a few letters that they write spontaneously, but mostly they're still in the stage of copying letters. And they're likely to be in the stage of copying the easier ones, things like V, T, H, O, X, L, A, C, U, and Y. The ones that you can get backwards are just hard. By the way, it's helpful to note that it is completely age appropriate for them to get letters backwards at this stage. It's not a sign of something going wrong. It's part of the process. You can gently prompt, "Is that the way that letter goes?" and have them compare it to one that they see written somewhere else to start building that pattern of which direction it faces. But it's not a cause for worry at this stage. They'll also at this stage be copying their first name, although they might not yet be writing it spontaneously from memory.
First grade, we call it a big fundamental learning to read year, because at this point in the year, they should really have a strong foundation of the alphabet and the letter sounds. Having the tracing can be really helpful in the beginning, lots of modeling, showing the students how to write.
One of the most helpful things at this age is to have multi-sensory and tactile ways of doing things. You can even work on sounding out words this way.
Act. And so you use your whole body to blend it that way. When we introduce new sounds, we make sure to have them look at our lips. For example, if I say, oh, the TH sound, you stick your tongue out at me. It's the only time you can stick your tongue out at me.
They also love, at this age, and I mean love, learning things through songs, rhymes, and chants.
Kids love learning nursery rhymes. That's how a lot of the ways that they learn rhyming words. They love playing games. They love drawing. They love anything that they can do with art. Matching, that can be really helpful for first graders.
In terms of math, it's very helpful for kids at this age to have something tactile they can count to make the concepts of those numbers real to them.
At the end of the year, they're able to count up to 100, and they're starting to be able to add bigger numbers.
Kids at this age can count the fingers on one hand with the index finger of the other, and more or less thread and tie their shoelaces. In terms of play outdoors or in the gym, at this stage, kids are proficient in running lightly on their toes and are learning activities like bike riding, rhythmic skipping, balance beams, and skating. Socio-emotionally, first graders are learning to express themselves and learning the basics of interacting with adults and peers.
They're very them-centered, and it's not in a selfish way by any means. It's just their way of thinking. They don't really know how to talk to other, ask questions, especially at the beginning of the year. They want to tell you everything about themselves. They want to tell you that they got ice cream with their grandma this weekend. They love hearing about you. They may not ask for that information, but they still love to hear information from you. But first graders are silly. They like to be silly. They're very eager to please. They are very warm and kind.
As they grow into the 6 to 8-year-old range, kids are able to follow 2 to 3 step directions for activities like cleaning a room independently and simple chores. Kids in this 1st and 2nd grade range are learning to regulate their emotions. They experience stressors from a multitude of things, such as having a cold, not having enough to do, or experiencing conflict at home, but most are not quite at the point yet of being able to recognize what's causing that stress. This is one of the areas in which we can help them start learning to identify what's bothering them, so that we can help them learn to manage the things they feel. Similarly, kids at this stage are already learning to use their words, but they often need reminders to do so. This is another really practical way that we can help kids develop this connection between the cognitive, socio-emotional, and language skills, which will be so crucial as they grow into adults. They're also working on learning to interpret other people's words and tone, and learning more nuances of language.
Holyoke, there is a lot of diversity in terms of language, and a lot of our students do speak Spanish and English. I had a student come up to me and she was in tears, and I asked her, "Oh, sweetie, what's going on?" And she told me that she had went up to a girl in her class and asked her for a crayon, and the girl said no, and then she expressed to me that she was upset that the girl didn't say no thank you. And so I had to go into, if you're asking something for somebody and they say no, they don't have to say no thank you. That's more if you were offered something. After explaining it to the child, she was completely fine, went on her way and happy. But some of these kids don't always understand. Like, they're very smart. It's just that when there is the multilingual aspect, they're learning 2 languages, and that's a lot for their brains. And so they might overestimate what a word really means. Or they might think, oh, this word goes with these other words, and they may not understand that that's not always going to be how the language is used. And myself, I'm not a native Spanish speaker, and so I had to really take myself out of my shoes and be like, okay, this girl really does think that it's rude to not say no thank you in any sort of a context.
In this 6 to 8-year-old range, kids are starting to explore some independence from their parents and family, and starting to think about the future and understand how they fit into the world. Friendships and teamwork are much more on their radar than they were in preschool years, and they find themselves at a stage where they really want to be liked and accepted by their friends. In the 3rd to 5th grade range, kids have made some significant strides cognitively. They should be able to complete multi-step tasks and maintain sustained attention. At this point, they've developed a significant amount of working memory, which is the ability to recall past information and apply it to a new situation. This allows them to read and follow chapter books and succeed with projects that require sustained attention and goal persistence.
They have a lot of different mindsets and different maturities because of the way that they had to grow up. Some students are far more mature for their age and they're ready to take on things, and there's children who are not and they are really frustrated with a lot of challenges. Students in the 4th and 5th grade usually don't have the best penmanship, especially these days with technology. Students are used to using Chromebooks and tablets to type out their work. So when it comes down to physically writing, sometimes those motor skills are not as strong as they should be. We just encourage our kids to write it over, write slower, take their time. But it's important that we encourage these things and we keep pushing them, especially with reading and writing, with math, that we brush up on the soft skills and we keep showing them soft skills. You can expect kids to push back. You can expect them not to know a lot of things that we would have known at this age, just due to the difference of the world and how they learn these days. You're going to expect children to not want to read when they could just pull it up on their phone. You're going to expect children not wanting to do the math when they have a calculator. And it's important that we just show them the foundation work, because when you learn the foundation, then you can actually do the work on your own. So we have to build these skills. Try to find the simplest way to explain it. A lot of flashcards in our classroom, and we do a lot of catch-up math, so it's like a mixture of easier math and then things that are on their level, so they're not being frustrated throughout doing it. So it'd be something simple like 0 minus 0, what they will already know is 0. And the next question might be 5 times 8. It's just a way to get them into doing the work without feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. And then they're noticing that they're completing work, so that it encourages them to do more work. So the best way is just to introduce it little by little and to just break it down to the simplest facts. So you're going to get a lot of pushback, but it's important that you tell them that you're there for them and that you can help them, and then they'll get through whatever it is that you're working on.
At this age, they've developed more flexibility, which allows them to make greater strides both cognitively and relationally. Socio-emotionally, kids at this age are starting to form stronger, more complex friendships and peer relationships. It becomes more emotionally important to have friends, especially of the same sex. And as those friendships become more important, kids also start to experience more peer pressure.
Most children follow one another at this age, so if like the leader of the group is behaving, then the other kids will behave. If one kid does something, get away with it, then the next child's going to want to do that. So at this age, I think it's important to have clear-cut discussions about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. When we have discussions in class about if we do this, the consequence is this, a lot of students are not accustomed to those kind of consequences. So it's very frustrating in the beginning, a lot of pushback. But over time, they understand that it's because that you care about them. And if you keep telling them these things, like it's safety, it's because it's important, it's because I care, eventually they will understand and they will just follow suit. And then you won't have to have those kind of conversations.
Kids are also starting to become more aware of their bodies as puberty approaches, which can be a rocky journey. Body image and eating problems sometimes start around this age.
They're not really handsy at this age. They don't really like to fight and wrestle, but they do have like little kid drama. He likes her, she likes him.
If you're working with this age group, you're in a really exciting position because studies have shown that the age of 9 or 10 is usually the single most formative year in a person's life. In grades 6 to 8, a child's working memory develops even more, and they're able to complete more complex tasks. As they get towards the end of this age range, they develop the ability to perform multiple-step math and word problems. Cognitively, this age range is one in which critical thinking skills improve quite a lot. Socio-emotionally, kids of this age exhibit increasing impulse control, particularly in environments where rules are in place. This is the top end of the age range that we work with at Homework House. If you're working with our oldest kids, you may start to see some of the hallmarks of kids entering adolescence. They may show more concern about their body image, looks, and clothes. They may experience more moodiness or depression. They may feel stress about their schoolwork as it becomes more challenging, or they may develop eating problems. As they start the process of creating their own identity separate from that of their parents, they may be increasingly interested in and influenced by their peer group and express less affection towards their parents, and that may come out in seeming rude or short-tempered sometimes. At this stage, a child is also naturally pretty self-focused, and they go back and forth between high expectations for themselves and deep insecurity. Kids are a gift at any and every stage. This is a time of life when their brains are capable of explosive growth. And sometimes those explosions are beautiful, and sometimes they're messy. As you work with the kids you tutor, keep in mind where they are on their developmental journey so that you can be as equipped as possible to meet them where they are and support their growth.